All right. Welcome everybody. How you all doing? It's good to have everybody around. Good evening, everybody. Tweet about it, share it on your LinkedIn page, invite your friends, let's get people in here. It's going to be a very interesting session today. Get people in here, tweet about it, send it on your Twitter platforms, on your LinkedIn platforms. It's the day two of our Azure DevOps training. I'm excited about it already. I believe you are also. I'm excited. I'm elated about it already. As to the things, I see you love peace and prosperity. I see you, Tope Femi. I see you, Emmanuel Ogre. Uh, I see you, Elijah. I see you, Taufik. I see you. Tweet about it, invite your friends, everybody. Let's get more people in on all platforms so that we start. We'll be starting in the next 3 minutes straight away. I'll be handing over to our tutor, our instructor, Ekene, in the next 3 minutes, and we'll kick off. It's a lot. We're going to be delving right straight into it today. All right. And I am excited about it already. I'm elated. I'm sure we know yesterday, even though we had glitches yesterday, technically, we still see that we're able to touch point with a lot of things. So don't worry. We are, we have those glitches have been resolved today. And then we can, just slide up through. All right. So tweet about it. Let's get more people in. Let's get more people in. Let's get more people in, everybody. Let's get more people in. Let's get more people in. Let's go. Let's go. So I'm just going to run a countdown for about 1 minute again. For about 1 minute, I'll run a countdown for about 1 minute. And after the countdown, we'll go right straight into it. We'll go right straight into it. If you are in, just drop a chat, say hello, greet people in. Let's just connect. Let's do connect. All right. Just say hi. My name is Ayo. I'm an enthusiast. Hi, my name is Femi. I'm a developer. Hi, my name is James. I'm a DevOps expert. Just drop it in the chat and let's just connect as the countdown runs down. All right, for about 1 minute. Okay, let's go. right. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back again. I'm excited to have you all back here. All right. We have our instructor here. Just before I bring him up on stage, please, I'm sending you a message. Can you please check? Just before I bring Ekene up on stage, everybody, for those who were here yesterday, uh, the yesterday session is already on the channel already. You can also go to the channel and check it out. If today is your first time, we started this particular training yesterday, and then we just did an overview of the Azure DevOps interface and all of that yesterday. You can check that yesterday's video out, all right, just to get that foundation. We'll just continue from where we stopped yesterday today, all right. However, like I said, the videos are available on the channel, so you can always go back to catch up with the video, all right. For those who might just be joining us for today for the first time, okay. All right, so I'm going to bring up Ekene on board, and then we'll just continue from where we stopped yesterday. I'm sure yesterday because of some of the technical glitches, we skipped through some of his theoretical explanations that he would have wanted to do. So today he will be delving into some of those theoretical explanations and then take us back to the practical side of things where we were yesterday. So like I said, it's going to be a very good ride. I will be your boy. I will be in the comment section, engaging with us during the session. If you have questions, drop your questions there. I will be engaging with us and all of that. And then also, while the session is going on, you can look at the screen. There are some specific things that our instructor might say, or there are some things he might walk us through. I would always put them on the screen for us so that we can always catch up with those things. All right. Don't worry. Like I said, I am your humble servant. All right. At this point in time, let me bring on board Ekene. Ekene, good evening, sir.
Good evening, Tunde. Good evening
Good.
to all our viewers.
You're the only one that calls me Tunde. Call me Ayo. You're the only one that calls me Tunde. Call me
Ayo.
Ayo. Exactly.
that's
I prefer
that's
that.
my trademark now. That's my trademark,
It's
sure.
only you that
Okay,
calls me
so
Tunde.
thank you, Ayo.
I
Thank you
prefer
very much
that.
for that. I kind of like Tunde, Sha, but no problem. So thank you all for at least for your patience yesterday and for being here with us again today. There is so much. We have this chance to give you so much. There's so much in DevOps. There's so much we have to give you, but one eye is never enough to give. But it's going to be continuous service. Just keep following us. We are going to give you one because DevOps is is so big. Like um, I've gone for a DevOps interview, and what I was being asked questions of a sysops because you don't ever know. Okay, let me give you one story. I in the morning I read something about UDP and TCP. I just read it in the morning while I was waking up from bed, and I had an interview that afternoon. Unknowingly to me, they just asked me what's the difference between UDP and TCP. Am I a network engineer? But as the guy asked it, that's what you need to do. So as a DevOps engineer, it's a very broad field. You may not know what they'll ask you because someone just asked me TCP and UDP. And if you fail it, you miss the chance. And thank God I just read it in the morning because I read always. So as a DevOps engineer, you must read always. You must subscribe to so many channels, Medium, Quora, dev.io, Microsoft Learn. Subscribe to so many channels because you learn every morning. Make sure you learn something new. So today we have a lot, but we'll not be able to take everything today. So I'll move into our day 2. This is what we have for day 2. We have repository. So we'll start with repository, which is version control. We'll show you the various version control. Then we'll go to infrastructure. Under infrastructure, we're supposed to do Terraform, but either we'll start with either container or Terraform based on time. So, but for today, we'll start with containers, how to build a container, and we'll have a project, set up a Docker solution. You will like this project, a Docker solution that is an architecture. We'll draw the architect, and you see how you can use Docker to build a container. This is a microservice application. Then if we have time, then we'll look at Terraform. But if we don't have time, we can look at Terraform tomorrow. Then for our pipeline, this is based on time. All these things is for today and tomorrow. If we have time, we'll continue. But without time, we'll just end, we'll end and continue in next session. So let's get started. We'll start with um, Git repository. We look at some basic Git commands. So let me share my screen because I like doing practical. These are the various Git commands you should know as a DevOps engineer because you may not know what you'll be asked and what will come up at any time. You can skip this as your cheat sheet. So let me start share. Let me just share my screen. So you see my screen. Please, are you confirmed you can see my screen? Hello?
Yes, yes, we see your screen. We can see your command, Git commands here.
What about now? Can you see the DevOps bot?
No, we cannot see the
What are you
DevOps board.
seeing now?
Okay. Yep. Now we see the DevOps board.
Okay. Okay. So this is the DevOps
Yes, we
bot.
can see
So
it.
now this is how you start. You create a repository. Once you are starting your project, you create a repository. Let's create a new repository. And we'll call this repository to do app API. So that's it, to do app API. We save it. So there are two things we are going to do now. So our developers now we have several developers scattered around the globe. So they have to clone this repository. So the first command we are going to create is to tell developers to clone this repository. And so we'll send them a mail of this repository. So go now to my I'll just have to share my whole screen, Ayo, then, because there's so much. I'll be moving up and down my between Visual Studio Code and this and the Azure bot.
All right.
So let me stop this. I'll have to share my whole screen.
So while you're doing that, somebody is asking that are we going to um, deploy? Let me get the question. Are we going to deploy the application to container and to a container environment? This application.
Yes, that's the final goal.
All
So
right.
let's learn the commands first, then we'll now deploy to a container. We'll now see the various container commands and so so I now go to Azure Visual Studio Code. Let me start a new project. I'll start a new project in Visual Studio Code. I'll clone that repository thing. So oh, yes. Okay. Please, yes.
So what you're doing now is
Still,
if we get you right, you're breaking a
okay.
bit, your voice is breaking a bit. But if we get you right, the repo you cloned from DevOps. So on your Visual Studio, which is your development environment on your local system, you are trying to save that file to a local drive, like if
Yeah,
on your
once we
computer.
clone it,
Yeah.
just a minute. Please. Yes.
Okay.
The project. I will still see my screen.
No, you're having internet glitches. We cannot hear you, and your screen is frozen.
Hello.
Yeah.
I'm cloning
All right.
API. I change direct to it and I go to code. I'm inside an
Sorry.
empty
Can
that
can you hear me?
now you put and the
I think we lost the Kene totally.
oh, God. Hello.
Yes, we cannot hear you clearly.
Hello.
Yeah, hello, we cannot hear you clearly. It's breaking. If you can hear us, if you can hear me,
Can
you're breaking a lot.
yeah. Hello. Oh, Jesus. Hello.
Yep, we can hear you now.
Hello.
I can hear
Huh?
you. We can hear
Yes.
you.
So this is the repository I've cloned. You see, it has a .git and it has a README file. So I open it now in Visual Studio. Open this folder in Visual Studio.
Ekene, because we lost you for a moment. When you cloned it, can you just explain, show us the
This is the
process and explain it?
folder. Hello. Hello.
Yeah,
Hello.
I can hear you.
Yes. So
Yeah,
you
yeah,
can
you are
hear me now.
audible. We can hear
So
you.
this is the repository. Ah, right. If you when you clone, if there are code inside, you see the codes. But this is an empty repository. So we are just going to start a new Node.js application. we are just so this is my Node.js application. The name is to do app version for I. Yes. I press command, get repository. I'm already cloning from that repository, so I put auto. So I've created my Node.js application. So I create my first file. I'll just create a simple file, which is my app.js. I create my app.js file. This will not be a full Node.js application, so it's just for us to test. So I'm on the master branch. The main branch I do it git branch. I have just branch, main branch. So if you go to our command here, if you look at our screen, you see its commands. So you have git add to add your branch, to add your files. So look at what we are using, git branch. List all the branch in the repository. Then git checkout branch name, switch to a different branch. So now if you want to create a new branch, so want to create a new branch from this file. Please, come if you can see hear me, please.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Git checkout branch. We now put B. We create a new branch. We now say dev. It's a feature branch, so we now authorization. We have created a new branch authorization and we have switched to it. So if I go to Git branch, I now have two branches. And where the star is, it means I'm an authorization branch. So I can do my work now. So this is assumed that I cannot push directly to the main branch. So I'm asked to create a feature branch, which is authorization. I create a feature branch to work on authorization. So I'm doing my work now. So if I come here to console, and I'll write something on the console. I save it. I've made a change. So I want to commit. I use git add. I go to git add. I can call the file name, which is app.js. I've added that file. Or I can use dot. I can do git add dot to add all the files I've changed. But now I just changed that one. Then I do git commit. Git commit, you put your message. Every commit must have a message. Added console log. Added console log. That's what I did. Enter. I've committed. So I now go to git status. git status to see all my files, the ones I've committed. So on track, the file is present, git add track. So this is my status. So I want to push now. I want to push to this my authorization. So I go to git remote to see my remote. So I have one remote location, which is origin. So I now say git push. What am I using? I'm using origin. Which branch am I pushing? Authorization. Authorization. Oh, sorry, please. I didn't put that well. That will be git push. So how happen? If I come to Azure DevOps, brief now. So this so this is our main where I created authorization branch. So I look for the authorization branch. So that's the branch we developed. So this is the added console logs. So I didn't spread that well. Added console log. So that's what I added. This thing now is this developer now has finished his quest. So any question so far? So these are files
Hello. So
that's come here. So let's look at some other file. So if we now go
hello, can you,
to git log, git log will show us everything that has happened. It's telling me author. These are all the commits that has happened on the git log. So it showed me all the commits in my working repository. Then you have git pull if you want to, if there are some changes you want to compare. Then git remote displays the remote repositories and the others. Let me do system be fast. So if I say git remote v, so I see my repositories, and they are so origin. This is the so if I have repositories, I'll see all the repository here. If I use git remote v, so that's that for the git command. So if you have time, you go and look at more of them. These are the git commands. There are several of them, so which you need to know as you request. So as a developer now, I want to do a pull request. So remember, this our system is just one user. So pull request cannot be done on Git. So pull request can only be done on the Azure DevOps. So if good pull request can only be done on the UI of every version control. If you can do pull, if you're using Jenkins on Jenkins platform, you can do pull request. So you cannot. So Git does not have a command for request. So I've logged into the platform, to the Azure DevOps platform. So I want to generate a pull request.
Sorry, Ekene, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So I think we have a couple of questions already.
Hello, I can hear you.
So can you hear me?
Okay.
So I think the
Yes,
very first.
I can hear you clearly.
So I think when your reception went up, when it was unstable, so a lot of people who were following you missed a few things. So for example, some people said they after you cloned the repo, right? Every other thing you did, they missed it
Yes.
until the point where you were committing before they were able to follow again. So between the space of when you cloned your repo
Wow.
to the point where you do your git commit. No, I was asking also. I think you didn't hear us because so all the time you see when you created a folder on your local computer, they didn't see that. When you open it in Visual Studio, they didn't see that. When you wrote the Node.js console log, they didn't see that. So me, I know what you did, but we didn't really get that side of things. You understand?
Oh.
So it was a bit confusing. That's one. Then number two, um, I think somebody is also saying that how did you add the Git repo to Azure? So I know you've done it already. So maybe you don't have to do it again. Just walk us through what you did when you did where you did it and where they are, so that we can just follow through in those places where your internet had glitches, and then you can go back to the pull request.
Okay. Okay. So this is sorry about that, please. So if you want to create, this is your repo. Click on. Okay, let's come from here. You I can so I have a new repo. If I click on new repo, new repository, I'll see the repository name. I cannot create a repository name. So that's then if I select the repository, I cannot clone it. So this is click on clone. So this clone, if I want to go to another developer, you get. I want to go to another developer to start work because work has already started on this. So I want to go to another developer to start work. That okay, you are new, so start work. So if I say clone, if I click on clone, I copy the link, and now go to Visual Studio. If I go to Visual Studio, just to type git clone, the repository. So we created in a folder to app API. This is a folder that it was an empty repository. I created a simple Node.js application. You open this folder now in so this is the folder I've opened. now. These are the files. Then I this line. Branches. Oh shit. So git checkout. So to check out from the main branch, I do git checkout. Is to create and switch. That's what it means. If I say git checkout branch, so I'm creating and I'm switching to it directly. I'll put user man dashboard. I'm working on the dashboard. That's a dashboard branch. It's a feature. Here's another branch. Switch to a new branch. So creating my own branch now. This is my own branch. So whatever I work on, if I come now and I now say it, I now write a text. I just put a text here. Let me just put one text. Let me just put a comment. Just put added comment. Save it. And now add. I know I go to git add app.js because that's the file I work on. I don't want to put all the files. Just to git add app.js. Put my message. I enter. So that's the commit. So I use origin thing. Depending on how you can have a repository that push to GitHub. You can push to GitHub. You can push to Azure DevOps. You can push to Jenkins. So based on where you are pushing to, that is what you put here your repositories. So I can have another. I can say I'm adding an endpoint for GitHub. I'm adding an endpoint for Jenkins. I'm adding an endpoint for Bitbucket. So so the U here is specific repo am I pushing to. So I put use origin, then which branch am I actually pushing? I'm pushing that to I'm pushing dashboard. So that's now I have 3 branches. Push I added. So this guy is not having. Look at this authorization branch. It's not having what I did. Are you seeing it? What I did is not having it. But to branch. Let me just do something. Let me open this file. If I open this, just so it's not writing. Then if I come here to this dashboard, this is a dashboard branch. So there's look at it's different from what to be. So you saw what was on the dash. So this is the dashboard branch now. So I've added to the file. So because I came out from that branch, from the main branch, which has it from The mail I cloned from, which I was working from before, was authorization. So it had the update. But the previous branch does not have the update. Yeah. So if it comes to authorization, this comment is not there. So you see the advantage of version control. So I can now decide that to come back to this file or I move. So this is switch stopped. Then everything has been captured so far. Hello. So I now create a pull request. I want to join. This is not supposed to be done by me, but I'm not assuming I'm just the only person. Is if you have several developers, they'll come here, they'll generate a pull request. So this is a pull request. As I said, you cannot create pull requests from Git. Git doesn't have a command for pull request. You do it only in the platform. So I put my pull request title, whatever the title is, they put the description, and here I can now write my this pull request. I put my reviewer. This is the person going to review the pull request. Then is it linked to a work item? Let me say I'm serving a bulk. So I've created work items. So you can now click, say it is linked to a work item. As a user, I work again. You now put create. So that's the and now so now me I'm seeing this now because I'm the approver. Even though I'm the so but on in a real sense, the person that is doing it is not the person to approve it because we are going to there are configurations you do on your system on your project which the person who's doing a pull request cannot approve it. But we can't do that now because it's just a one user system to see what really happens. So I have to approve this pull request. I've gone through it, everything is okay. I can add comments when necessary. I click on approve. Oh, what is this now? Azure DevOps seems to be slow sometimes. Just a minute here. And, oh shit. Okay. While that is loading, let's. So that's all about pipeline. So I've made it. So that's all about repo. So let's move on now. Except there are other questions. Let's just wait. This is still taking some time. So let's take some questions. Are there any questions on the chat right now?
So, if if you can hear me, someone was asking, how do we undo Git credentials from Azure DevOps to VS Code?
Okay. So this is once you start your pull request, it will ask you to log in. If I didn't show that part because I've already done it. Once you take if you're on Azure DevOps or Git, once you want to clone any repository, whether it's from Azure DevOps or from Git or from Jenkins, it will tell you to log in. So once you log in, it will now be saved in the global file. So then on your global file, then before you commit, let me just say this is gone. Oh shit. Why this now? So
So if you can hear us, just went blank. Your screen just went blank. So we are unable to anything right now. Okay, I think let's just wait. So all right. So let's just wait for a moment so that it joins back uh and we'll continue, all right? Let's just wait for a minute or two. Uh so I'm just gonna run I'll just run a bit of countdown, everybody. I'll uh just run a 15, 30 seconds, 1 minute countdown while it joins us back, and then we'll continue from there. All right. So let's just run a quick countdown. Once it joins us, we'll continue from there. Okay. All right. So All right, welcome back, people. Um, Welcome back again. Sincere apologies for that little glitch that we had. We're back now, and our instructor also is back. All right, welcome back, Ekene. I believe you can hear us uh, loud and clear this time around. Yeah, please speak so we know we can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, fantastic, fantastic. Welcome back. All right, while you were gone, we had a bit of conversations going on. All right. Quite a few questions. So one of them is about the credentials. All right. So the initial question I asked was as to how do we handle Git credentials from Azure to VS Studio, right? So somebody was saying that their Git credentials is tied to their GitHub, but now they have another Git from Azure DevOps. Is it can they use their Git credentials, more like a single sign-on on both different on Azure Dev, the one they use for GitHub also on DevOps and all of that. So I don't know. Maybe
Mm.
you want to show that so we understand how that works in terms of credentials.
In terms of credentials, you don't. There's a global file. You don't manage. You don't like change it. As I said before. If I want to clone this repository, I if I go to this repository and you want to clone it, at the point of cloning or doing a pull from that push on repository, it will ask you to log in if you have not logged in, and it will now redirect you to a browser where you will log. If it is GitHub, it will redirect you to your browser, GitHub on your browser where you will log in, and from then it will now save that credentials. So while you're working on that particular repository, it will work on that same with those credentials which have been saved on the global file. So if I go to .git, if you go to your global file, I can't really go now because it will take some time, but it will save that credentials. So anytime you are moving from one repository to other, it will always ask you to log in. That's just a simple definition. We are moving from one repository to the other, it will ask you to sign on. And once you sign in, it now saves those credentials in the global file.
So Elijah is saying that he feels like it is seeing his default GitHub credentials, which he has used before, but he's looking for a way to add his Azure DevOps credentials instead.
It's that just, let me show you that. Let me just quit. Let me try to log. Now that I've logged in here, let me clone here. It says stuff. If you come here, so you go to Git global lists. Oh, wait, Git lists global. Hmm. Oh, oh. Can you see my screen now?
We can see your Visual Studio,
Hmm.
yes.
Okay, my Visual Studio Code. Just have to. There is one file. Let me open that file, please. You go to users. .git. Oh shit. Oh. This system doesn't allow me to do so many things. Let's see. Oh, God. Oh, Jesus. I have. Tension. Okay, let's just continue. I'll get that. Let me just continue. I'll get that. And there is a tool you have to use to add, write to your git config file. Please let's just continue. I'll get that for you, Elijah. Just give me a minute. Let me just continue with this one for now. Can we see hear me, Ayo? Hello.
Yes,
Let's
yes,
just
yes, we
let's
can hear
just
you, but
continue.
none
I'll
of us.
get back to Elijah on that.
All right, all right, all right.
Okay. So I'll get back to that Git repository because you need to change your config file. Because most times what I just do, and most times it's based on how you install your Git on your system. So based on how you install your Git, so at any time you go to a new repository, it will ask you to log into that new repository. So that's how I set up my system, and it has been working for me. But for that question, so now the next thing we want to go in for now is Docker. We are going into Docker now. So let me just, hope you can still see
Okay, we
my
cannot see your
screen.
screen.
Uh,
No, we cannot.
okay. I don't know why PowerPoint always refuses to share as window. So you can see my screen now.
All right, yes, we're good.
Okay. So we are now in Docker. So I say Docker is an open platform. So hope we are all good for the version control. So we'll come back to version control when we want to do pipeline. But for now, we are going to infrastructure now. And the first infrastructure we're going for is Docker. So Docker is a container tool. Um, Before Docker came in, we have what they call visual VMs. So with your VM, you can now deploy your application on premise. When you're on premise, you have your servers. So before VMs came in, through VMware, they now build hypervisors. You can now on one server, you can have multiple machines, what you call virtual machines. You can do that even on your Windows machine. You can have multiple on my Windows machine. I can install. I can have what is it called, a hypervisor. So I can install a Linux machine. I can install a Mac OS machine. I can also install that Windows machine on top one operating system, which is managed by hypervisor. Then they now move to a cloud. So on the cloud now you have virtual machines. All those machines now they're running on top of what is called a hypervisor. Now you have various machines on it. So it's a full-fledged server on the cloud. Virtual machines. It's a full-fledged server on the cloud. So, but before you spin up one, it's expensive. It is very slow. You cannot just off and on. If you just want to shut down, there was an issue. You want to shut down the virtual machine. You want to spin it up. It takes time. So they now look for something which is faster, and now they went to containerization. Containerization now there is no hypervisor. There is just one operating system. So you can't install another operating system inside of it again. So there's just one operating system. Then you now have containers on top of those, on top of that operating system. And there are various and one of the major tools for creating containers is Docker. Docker has won since 2002. Docker has been there, has been gaining weight in the container in the container space. But we have other tools for container. We have Red Hat OpenShift. We have Red Hat OpenShift. Why most enterprises go for Red Hat OpenShift? Because one, you have support, you have SLA. But for Docker, it's an open source, so it is best endeavor kind of support. So most enterprise companies don't go for Docker; they go for OpenShift because there. It is managed. It's not an open source project. It's managed by Red Hat. So if you have any issue, if you need support, they have SLAs. I know enterprises really want SLA. If I want this thing, when will you deliver it to me? But with Docker, you can't get that. Well, most open source, if you are going into DevOps, you mostly meet people, mostly in the open source space, who go for Docker container. So that's why we are going to take Docker container, because it is popular and it has a very large community. So if you take Docker, the chances of you learning and getting up and running is very slow. It's very it's not as steep as when you go to Red Hat OpenShift. You have build kit. There's also another open source or container tool, but it's not widely used like Docker. So before you now build Docker, you now have what they call Docker Compose. Docker Compose is a file that defines all the containers that are going to run on your application. So and it is built using a tool. The programming language for Docker is YAML. YAML means YAML and markup language. That's the meaning of YAML. YAML. YAML and markup language. So the file format for Docker. That's what you should build your Docker to. So let's some building blocks for Docker. When you start your Docker file, you have the version, which is the Docker Compose file format. That's you start with the version, then your services. All the services are going to run on your container, on all the containers you want to build. You put them everything in your Docker Compose file. Then you have networks. The default network for Docker is Bridge, but you can create your own custom network. Like in the application we are going to see how we created a custom network to manage our backend and our frontend. Then you have volume that are used by the service. Each volume is defined in a separate YAML block with a name. And so volume is where am I getting my source code? Where is it coming from? Then environment variables. If you're a developer, you must have heard of environment variables. Like if you want to save database credentials, you don't put them on your config file. You put them in environment variables so that as I move from one environment to the other, I don't need to bother about the like now let me say um the password if I'm on dev, but on production 1234 is not the password. But so I don't care about that. What I just care about is but the same environment variable name will go through all the stages. In my system, the password to the database I'm using or to MongoDB I'm using is XYZ, but I'll tie it to my environment variables, which is DB password. Now, if I go to development environment, if I publish to development environment, the password to the database can be changed to 1234, but the environment variable name cannot change. If you change that name, the application will break. So the environment variable name will still remain password, DB password. If I go to production environment, the environment a name for that will still remain DB password, but the value can still change to ABC. So that's what the environment variables do. So you store everything in environment variables. So no matter where you go, as long as that variable is consistent, then you can still pick the same value for your application. Then let's look at a simple project. We're going to look at this project now. What was the objective? We want to build a complete Docker file that deploys 4 containers as follows: a front-end web application built with Angular, 3 backend API built using Node.js to handle 3 microservices. Each of them have a database. So that's a normal microservice architecture. You have 3 microservices, each having their own database. Then you have, and there's a service bus which connects each of them. Then then there will be a load balancer and an API gateway. So let's draw this architecture. Let's let me use LucidChat to draw this architecture for us. So I'll go to LucidChat. So if we go to Lucy chat, I've written down the code here. So this is, before Lucy chat comes up, okay. Let me log in. So this is the code. This is a file structure. Hope you can still see my screen. So this is our file structure. We have three services. These are front end, which has our web. It has an Angular application. This is a simple Angular application. Then we have our services. This is our delivery service. We have our restaurant service, and we have our order service. So these are, and they are simple Node.js application. If you open, these are just simple Node.js. These are the Node.js application. So we start with a Docker Compose. These are Docker Compose file. As we said in our definition for building blocks, you must state a version. This is a version. Then you go to services. So and you must also know that indentation is very important when it comes to YAML. If I shift this thing here, if I shift it, it means something else. It will give me an error because it means something else. So indentation is like see it like curly braces. So this one is a curly braces that contains everything under service. So see where it ends. Everything now under the service is under that major curly brace. Then as I shift, I keep moving into another curly brace. So this is my service. So I have under services, I have my web. This is my web application, which takes my context, everything. It has it takes into context everything in that folder. Then the Docker file. So each of them have their own Docker file. I don't want to put their Docker file there because of space. So each of them have their Docker file. You define the Docker file. For this is a Docker file. Then it depends on the port where this is it. When you are building a Docker container, there is what they call port translation in Docker container. I don't want to go into so many stereos. Let's just see the practical and see how it works. Then, if we read it, if we go online and read about Docker, we'll now understand better. So, if you have to call port translation, this first port is your machine port. Then this is your Docker. Then the second port is your Docker port. So from your machine, you are calling port 80, but port 80 in Docker, but Docker is translating it to another port within itself. So this one Docker can still say, okay, if it's calling port 80 from outside, if you hit port 8 from outside, then translate it to port 803 from inside. So the first is machine, second is your Docker container. Then you have your API gate. Then it depends on API gateway. What does it mean? It means that we wait for API gate connected. Once API gateway load, pick the details of API gateway and load it. So time is like time me to API gateway. You get, so that's like connect me or tie me to this. I depend on this. So we are related. So that's what depends on. Then which network is it built on? Is WebNet. So please, network is very important. If you put two Docker containers on different network, you may have communication issues. So you to stay the network. So that's that. Then I now go to another service. You see all the services are on the same line. Please, indentation is very important when it comes to Docker. You now go to delivery service. You now, the next thing now is build. How do you build it? I need this Docker, this is the Docker file. So let's open the Docker files for this one. So delivery service, I go to his Docker file. If I go to delivery service, this is the Docker file for delivery service. So it's not, you see, this one is not a .yaml. It's not a Docker compose. It just, there is no file extension. You just call it Docker file. Don't mind, this delivery service is just for identification. I can just call it Docker file. I can say decide to change this name to just Docker file, but it must have this Docker file from the beginning. So this is the Docker file now. So I'm creating a node, this now to create a Node.js application. So what's the package? I copy the package.json, which is this package.json. I copy it. So if I copy, I copy the files because I want to run it inside Docker. So I copy this file, and this file, if you know package.json, it contains all your dependencies which your application is using. So all your dependencies are going to be here. So this is your package.json. If you go into Node.js development, then what what next? I run npm install. What does npm install means? Under my package.json, run all the dependencies, install all the dependencies first. Then I copy it. Then this copy now is copy the rest of the application code to the working directory. So after I found this, I now come here, all these application codes now. This is my next JS, index.js, all the application codes, I copy them into the working directory. Environment port 300, the same thing I would have had to my with my Node application. Then I'm connected to my MongoDB. This is MongoDB here. Then this is service bus. Remember, we said each of them will be connected to a service bus. So this is a connection string to the service bus. So please, I'll comment out this line. I changed my database from MongoDB to, I changed it from MongoDB to MySQL. So let me comment this line out. Mm. So, so that's that. Then you run the command npm start. Npm start is this command here. So what does npm start do? npm start is just your normal start for Node.js or index.js. So you start the application. So that's just what that file do. So the same thing for others. So if I still come here, let me just go back to that file and change that thing I did. Where is that delivery service? Okay, that's gone. So we understand that one. Then it depends on service bus, database delivery service. Then this is the database. Depends. So now each of the APIs, each of the microservice depends on a database and a service bus. Database and the service bus, database and the service bus. And this is the database. So I will talk about the environment variable. So I've named my environment variable database host name. Because with database delivery service. So anywhere I go, I'm always looking for, so based on my application. So this is not the application. This is just a container to host the application. So the application will be calling database host name whenever it wants to write to database. This is what it will be calling database host name. And service bus host name. This is what it will be. This is what the application will see. It doesn't see this part, service bus or delivery service. It doesn't see this too. It sees it works with only database host name from environment variables. So that's the one advantage. So it doesn't know which name you put here. Whatever name you put here is not its business. All it wants is just this database host name. Now you see our APIs, they are on a different network called backend. A network is created for them called backend. Our front end was on a network called WebNet, while our backend, our API, are on a network called backend. We have our other service with the environment. Then this is Yazoo network. Then we now go to our database our database. This is a database delivery service. It's using an image, MySQL 5.7. Then it has the password. This is password. Then MySQL database. This is the database one. So we are using this database now for each of the as I said, each microservice has it. So that is because that's one of the best architecture patterns for microservice. Each microservice should have its own database for one major reason: scalability. So if you want to scale, you can scale easily. So each of them having their own database. So this is database for restaurant service. Each having its own database. Then I'll now have the load balance. This is a service bus. Our service bus here is RabbitMQ. For microservices, you need a service bus. That's what connects each of them for them to share messages. So for communication for our microservice, we are going to use RabbitMQ, which talks to this port, from this port to this port. Then we have our load balancer. For our load balancer, we are going to use a simple web server, Nginx, which is a very lightweight web server for our microservice. And the volume, we are going to pick the volume from here. This is the source of the volume. If we go to here, we'll see the volume there. Then it depends now. The load balancer now depends on API gateway. Remember, the load balancer sits between the front end and the back end. So it's depending on the web, the front end, and the back end. So our load balancer now, because we have 3 APIs at the back end, so we also want to, so those 3 APIs now, we can decide that for each of those microservices, we want to scale them. So we can decide to have for for other for other service, we can have 3, we can scale it out. We can have 3 containers for it. So that's where load balancer comes in. So that it helps us for scaling and scale out and scaling for our back end APIs. So for each of them, we can have different 3 instances for each of them. For order, we can have 3 instances. For restaurant service, we can have 3 instances. For delivery service, we can have 3 instances. So the microservice now, the load balancer will be the one to manage those instances and the communication between those instances. So that is why it is sitting between, that's why it depends on the web and the API gateway. But since it's in the front end, it's not in the back end, it's using the webnet network. Then we have our API gateway. We have our API gateway now. See, API gateway now sits between 2 networks because it has the front end, a front facing end and a back facing end. So the API gateway now has sit between 2 networks. So it has, so this service has 2 network cards. It has a network card that talks to the front end. That's the load balancer, and that's a network card that talks to the back end. They will now create our networks. So the network now is webnet and backend. So that's the structure for for our Docker Compose. So if you come here, you see all the files. So the next thing we want to do now is to build. So any questions so far, Ayo?
Okay,
I
so
was trying to open
I
this in
was trying
chat.
to answer it, but let me just. Somebody's asking. Can you hear me? Somebody's asking, how do we get the service bus? He said you mentioned it in 2 of the Docker file you created. Says, how do we then get the service bus? So if you can answer.
That's we have stated here service bus is RabbitMQ. This is it. It's just stated. It's using an image, RabbitMQ, and the port. So if you now go to our Docker file, it is telling you service bus connection. Can we see it here? So RabbitMQ is a service in Azure. So just to use this service, also it will load it into our application. It will spin up the service. By the time you are pushing this your Docker file through your pipeline to Azure, that service bus will be spin up automatically. You will not need to go into Azure again to spin up that service bus. So that's why if you look here, I've stated in all my backend services, I've stated the service bus connection. So this is a service bus connection. So that's how you get it. You state here that I need it to be spin up. This one means spin this resource on this port. That's it. So this is what it's telling you. So spin it up, then I'll connect to it. But if you don't do this, this file at this point will return an error because there will be no service bus spin up. That means you need to go to Azure to spin it up directly. Or somebody has already spin it up. You are using an already existing service bus. I wish this thing has loaded. I would have logged in and see. Just want to log in and show us how the whole infrastructure works. So, any other question, please? Hello?
No, no questions for now. No questions for now. All right. No questions for now. Yeah.
So, so I now do. Let's see. This command, so many commands to remember. Okay, so I need to start my Docker desktop. Sorry, I'm not setting my Docker desktop. You need to start your Docker. You need to have Docker desktop when you're building, when you're writing Docker. So let me start the Docker desktop. Just 1 minute, please. Just 1 minute. Let me start the Docker desktop. Okay, the Docker desktop is starting.
Again, we cannot hear you.
Okay, I'm just starting my Docker desktop. But can you see my screen?
Okay. Yes, your Docker desktop is starting. Yeah. So
Yes.
why that is starting up? Somebody was asking, are there extensions you probably recommend for DevOps engineer in Visual Studio? So as they could see some extensions in your VS Code. So they wanted to say, are there like standard extensions that they should also put into considerations as DevOps engineers?
Okay. So extensions, you need your Docker extension, which will help you in from like you see this my Docker file now. This Docker file, this coloring is done because I have Docker extension installed on my system. So if you don't have that extension, it will not give you good coloring. I know as a developer, coloring is very key. So look at all this coloring is done because I have Docker extension. You need your Kubernetes extension. We'll start writing Kubernetes. You also need your Azure CLI. Then Terraform. You need Terraform extension. So it's just basically what you are into. There are no basic. It's just where you find yourself, what you're working with. If you find yourself working with a lot of time with Azure storage, you need the Azure storage extension. Like you see, I have my Google Cloud. I have Azure Function extension. So based on what you're working on, there are several extensions you can work on. So they are not recommended like as in for a start, but just based on what you're working on, you can choose which extension you want to use. There are so many extensions. I cannot say you must have this for a start. It's just what you're working on the cloud to get the extension for the cloud, especially those ones that are going to make your code readable, that are going to add IntelliSense. Like I have my Docker, so I have a lot of IntelliSense when I'm putting my Docker. When I'm putting Terraform, there's an extension that gives me good IntelliSense when I'm creating my Terraform. So just what you're working on, find there are several extensions which you can get from VS Code. So my Docker container is one. So if you look before, I ran this before. So these are the containers now which I've created. But let me run it again. You see what happens. So I run Docker compose up build. It's going to take some time, but we'll now complete it. So it's now picking this Docker compose. Why is it picking this? Because this file is on the root of this. So it's at the root, so it is running this file, picking everything bit by bit. So if it picks any one, it will run the Docker file attached to it to build the image, to build the container. So let's continue while this one is running. Now let's go now to Azure, how to create an Azure container registry. So with that, we'll end and continue tomorrow. So let's go back here while that one is running. So this is now creating your Azure container registry. Creating a container in Azure. So the first thing is to log in. Let me open another terminal. I've downloaded Azure CLI before now. So I'm going to use Azure CLI to run this command. So to deploy to Azure, I'm using CLI to deploy to Azure. But in our next lecture, we are going to use a pipeline to deploy to Azure. So I use AZ login. You have to log in first. It will now open a browser for me to log in. A web browser has been opened. So this is a web browser. Let me just copy this thing here to let me use Chrome. So I'm using this is the account I used to create my Azure, my Azure tenant. So I've logged in. So yeah, this is showing now. This is my subscription one enabled tenant ID this. Then the next thing now is what? It says create a resource group. So I'm going to create a resource group called Docker resource group. The location Eastern US. If I just easy group create, I put easy group create. The name is what? Which thing did we choose there? Docker, the name. We'll put Docker resource group. Then we'll put the location. East. What the location we put there? East US. No, create. This one is still running. Our Docker is still building. Sorry, I use one dash here. Supposed to be two dash. Ah. Sure. So created a resource group. The next thing says we create a container registry. So them just for sake of time, I'll just copy this one. My resource group has been created. So this is now it's using my resource group, Docker resource group, the name of them my container registry. So this is easy ACR. This easy ACR means Azure Container Registry create where in where in a resource group called Docker Registry. And one thing you must know is Azure Container Registry name is global. It's globally unique. The whole world it is unique. The whole world. So if somebody has used a name, it will tell you that name has been used. Like this one now has been used. So we'll now call it stringify def. I must have only alphanumeric, just alphabet, small letters. Def training registry, container registry. No alphabet, no special character. I mean, no capital letters, no numbers, just alphabet and no special character. Then I enter. So that's our container registry. So, right is creating. Yes, let me try to log into Azure portal. Well, I can see that I go to portal.azure.com. So this is Azure portal. I go to container registry. So this is the container registry we just created. So you can see it here. What we just created is a container registry. So Ayo, let's at least we've taken some time. So can we continue from there tomorrow where we'll we're going to push the container using pipeline and CLI.
All right, fantastic, fantastic. Can you just do a recap so that we can at least follow through what we've learned today, and then we know where we're going. We're continuing from tomorrow. If you have questions, drop it on the chat with what has been done today. While Ekene is doing a summary for us before we move on. All right.
Okay. Well, as I said before, DevOps is quite huge. It's quite tasking. It's quite it requires so much time because as a DevOps engineer, you are the you're the center of the cloud. You are the center. The whole cloud sits on your shoulder. Every company that is on the cloud, they depend on you so much as a DevOps engineer. So you need to know so much. As a DevOps engineer, you have insight into development, you have insight into security, you have insight into networking, you have insight into sysadmin, you have insight into the everything. And so because you're the guy who would like bridge the gap. So for a recap of what we have done today, we have taken you through Azure Repo where you do your version control, and we have shown you some common Git codes which we are going to share with you. You just learn them, and it will help you when you are managing your repository. Then we took you through let me just share my screen here. So these are the Git repo where we showed you how to create some basic Git commands, Git pull. Then we did a good pull request where a developer has worked on a change on a particular branch and he wants to merge it with the main branch. He has worked on a feature. So this developer work on dashboard and he wants to merge it with the main branch, which is the main branch from dashboard. You want to put it in the whole application because everybody is building on very small parts. Some are building on dashboard, some are building on authentication and whatever. So they want to merge it. So we saw how we do a pull request to merge it. Then we now move on um, to Docker, where we saw the building blocks of Docker, the version, the network, the volume, and others, how to build a Docker file. They will now do the project on how we write a complete Docker file that builds a microservice architecture of an application that has three containers, an API gateway, a load balancer, and a service bus. We saw how we build a Docker container for that. Then we now do a Docker compose where we now build all the containers and add all the files. Then we now created we now went to Azure CLI. We used Azure CLI to create a resource group, and we create an Azure container registry in Azure. So from there we are going to for next class, we're going to see how we're going to push our containers to that Azure container registry, and finally to the final destination where our application will be used. Azure container registry is not where your application will be used. It's from container registry where you pick and create it and into Kubernetes or Azure container instance. So from container registry, we are going to create container instance where your images, which are in container registry, will be built and run. Once an image is run, it becomes a container in Azure container instance. So that's what we'll continue tomorrow. We'll use pipeline, now we'll use CLI to do that. But there is so much. I don't think we're able to cover Terraform. But in subsequent bulletin, in subsequent learnings, we are going to see Terraform and how to use Terraform to deploy infrastructure. But for now, let's just be taking it bit by bit until when we are all full-fledged DevOps engineer. So that's all for me for now. Thank you very much.
All right, fantastic, fantastic stuff. Love said, I don't want this to stop. All right, no problem. Like we said, we are. Thank you so much, Ekene. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. One of the things is when you're learning stuff like this, is very important, especially when it comes to technical things. It's very important to take it gradually. All right, that's the best way. I love the fact that as we're doing this, quite a few people were chatting me up. They were also following side by side, I could see that somebody was able to clone their repos, and they were able to also push their code back to the repo, commit their code to the repo, which is good. So you see that. And like I said, yesterday's video is on the channel. To this one also will be going to the channel once we end the broadcast, so you can follow through. And then you can also you can drop questions even while after the class. We'll get a prompt, we can still answer you and all of that. Tomorrow we'll continue again wherever we end tomorrow. Definitely next month, the month of May, we'll definitely be having another session. We'll publicize another session again. Like I said, we'll just take it gradually, right? No rush. Whatever we've learned in this Friday, Saturday, and tomorrow, put it to test it out, ask us questions, chat with us online. Let's see how we can answer your questions, get you working. Next month again, we'll probably just pick it up from where we stop and continue. That's the idea. The idea is just, from the look of things, I was thinking tomorrow I would be able to show you how to, for people who are probably in the local technology system, to see how I can show you how to maybe deploy your low-code applications like Power Platforms to Azure Repo, to push it from one environment to the other and all of that. But I don't think we'll be able to cover that in this particular training. But we can, like I said, we can always do that in subsequent ones, and I'll also be able to show us that. So great stuff, Ikene. We've learned a lot today, man. A lot of people are very happy, excited today with what they've seen. We'll definitely continue tomorrow. Wherever we end tomorrow, I promise you, in the month of May, we'll have another session. We'll have another session in the month
Yeah.
of May. All right. We'll definitely have another session in the month of May. All right. Any question from anybody? Any other question? All right, I think for now there's no question. All right, so since there's no question for now, thank you everybody. Once this broadcast ends, you can take a quick, relax a bit, maybe tomorrow morning after, just take a time, go through the session on Friday of today, and then tomorrow we'll wrap up and we'll take him after that, just engage with us going forward. And by next month, see how we can continue. Don't worry, next month we might even want to go more than 3 days, because I would also want to bring in some low code guys on board, or people who work with CRM, who work with ERP systems. I'm sure Elijah is on board. Elijah is an ERP architect. People like that. We also want to see how DevOps can really, help, what we do in those spaces also, right? In those enterprise spaces and all of that. Don't worry, it's a journey. Follow us through as much as possible through the year. We'll see how we can really do this often with us. One of the things I tell people is, if it is just 3, 4 of us that I'm seeing consistently and is following us, and you're asking questions and you're making changes, man, that's a lot. That's a lot, because it means that we've been able to impact people who are able to do exactly what we think they should be doing. All right. So we'll see you all tomorrow, same time, 7 p.m. West African time. If you're watching this video on YouTube, maybe you just come on board, you want to reach out to us. We'll be glad to work with you on anything, answer your questions. Maybe you're on a project, whatever, reach out to us and I'll be glad to have you. All right. Uh, all right. Please do have a wonderful evening, everybody. Thank you, Kenny. Thank you so much for, your calmness and detailed explanation. I thank everybody for the patience also. We'll see you all tomorrow. Please do have a wonderful evening, afternoon, or morning, wherever you're watching us from. All right. See you all tomorrow. Have a wonderful time, everyone.